Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Discard Dead, where we like to open boosters, boxes and decks of out-of-print trading card games. Today we will learn how to play the X-Files collectible card game, lead a team of investigators to explore the weird and unimaginable, and solve cases to find clues that lead to the revelation of your X-File, the strange and bizarre becoming clear. Remember, the truth is out there. Before you lead your investigation against the mysterious X-File, let's first take a look at the kinds of cards you'll come across and learn what they can do to give you the edge. The following cards, the Event, Witness, Bluff, Equipment, and Combat cards, each share the same following common information. The card's name, type, Advanced Indicator, which shows it can only be used in advanced games, and the card's collector number, as well as activators to show when the card can be used, keywords that reference anything to do with the card's effect, the actual effect of the card's cost to show how many resource, conspiracy, or either points may be used to play it, and the storyline, featuring a phrase or quote relating to the card itself, taken from the X-Files TV show. Events can hinder your opponent's agents in the pursuit of the truth, your X-Files identity, while others serve to aid you in discovering your opponents. Witnesses help agents investigate sites and usually modify skill checks. They are considered to be unique in that only one copy of each may be applied to a single skill check. Bluffs help to deter your opponents when they make their own skill checks, either by increasing the target or decreasing the skill. Equipment cards help by permanently modifying an agent's skill as long as it is possessed by that agent. Combat cards modify the results of combat in your favor. Adversaries hinder opposing agents by engaging them in combat. In addition to having the standard information, adversary cards also detail their close and long-range skills as well as their health. Sites form the basis of your investigation into your opponent's X-File. These are the locations of crimes or inexplicable events and require investigating agents to make skill checks, and a success will allow you to ask questions and gather clues. Agents form the backbone of your investigation and are the nemesis of the X-File, investigating sites and asking the right questions to uncover the truth. Although they share a majority of the common features of other cards, they lack activators and also have a health rating to track how injured they become, a list of skills and proficiencies for fieldwork, and have a resource number showing how resourceful they are during the briefing phase. There are a number of skills any agent may possess, which can be applied to appropriate skill checks when investigating sites, such as alien investigation, behavioral clues, bureaucracy, close-range combat, computer skills, criminal investigation, evidence collection, long-range combat, medical proficiency, observation, occult investigation, sciences, and subterfuge. Finally, X-Files represent the powers behind conspiracies. During the course of the game, the questions you ask will help uncover the identity of your opponent's X-File. X-File cards differ from other cards in that they do not have activators or keywords, but instead have certain special classifications that describe their existence. Like the other cards, however, X-Files have a name, card type, storyline, and a collector's number. The following are the different types of classifications an X-File can have. Affiliations such as alien, government, evolutionary, primordial, or occult. Motives include survival, security, control, knowledge, and ideology. Methods such as violence, manipulation, subterfuge, possession, or threats. And their results such as death, insanity, psychological imbalance, abduction, or manipulation of evidence. Before we go further, let's take a look at some finer aspects of the game. Understanding these will help in not only playing the game, but also determining which cards to use. Cards are generally played through the expenditure of certain types of points which are collected in pools. If it is your turn, you will generate and spend points kept in your resource pool. If it is not your turn, you will accrue and spend from a conspiracy pool. Your resource pool represents resources the Bureau has at its disposal and are spent on cards that can aid your agents. Every agent has a resource skill value signified on their skill list as Res. During the briefing phase, add up the Res skills of all of your agents that aren't in the hospital. This is the number of tokens that are added to your resource pool. Obviously, injured agents cannot support their team or lend any of their talents if they are hurt and in bed. After generating your resource pool, you may spend some tokens to draw cards at 1 point apiece, but they all must be bought at once. The rest remain in your pool for you to pay for other cards during your turn. Your conspiracy pool is used to play cards to hinder your opponent and further your X-Files agenda. At the end of your opponent's briefing phase, you now have the chance to generate a conspiracy pool by discarding cards with resource costs or any costs for an equal amount added to your conspiracy pool. If you discard a card that costs 3 resource, then you will gain 3 conspiracy. Likewise to the investigating player, after generating a conspiracy pool, you may now pay for and draw a number of extra cards equal to how much conspiracy is spent. Keep in mind, if you discard an agent card drawn from your deck to gain conspiracy pool, you only gain as much as that agent's res skill, not their cost. Activators generally tell you when you can play certain cards and under what conditions you play them. There are 3 main activators: active, conspiracy, and any other terms. For example, combat cards have the combat activator, meaning they can only be played during combat. Some adversaries have activators that are dependent on whether a witness has been played at the site in particular. Witnesses usually have activators that specify a particular skill prerequisite, for example. Keywords generally mention all the key information on the card itself. The site card Skyland Mountain, Virginia, for example, is a site that has the subterfuge skill prerequisite and allows a method question, and so its keywords are site, subterfuge, method, and mono. Mono being that only 1 skill is required. The witness card Kevin Morris, aka the Conduit, is a witness card that adds 1 resource pool whenever an alien investigation or evidence collection card is played. So its keywords are witness, alien investigation, evidence collection, and resource. Keywords are important because not only do they detail key features of a card, but also allows them to be targeted by other cards that affect certain keywords. Kevin Morris has the alien investigation and evidence collection keywords because his effect triggers when those cards with those keywords are played. Out of all the cards available to you, some of the most important are the side cards, as these allow you to ask questions about the opposing X-File. In a standard 60-card deck, at least 15 or so should be sides, and they should be centered around your agent's strengths. All other cards fit into 2 basic categories: cards that help you, and those that hinder your opponent. Helpful cards include witnesses, events, combat cards, and agents. Cards that assist on skill checks will be advantageous, but generally have more event cards than the others as their effects are varied and specific. Hindering cards include some events, adversaries, bluffs, and some other combat cards. Adversaries can inflict damage to your opponent's agents and can potentially incapacitate them, and bluffs can alter your opponent's skill checks in your favor. Finally, consider the costs of your cards. Too many powerful cards may be useless if you cannot pay for them. Try balancing your more expensive cards with lower value ones to be more active either on your turn or your opponent's. A sample deck build that could be well rounded enough might include 15 sites, 7 adversaries, 6 bluffs, 5 equipment, 15 events, 6 witnesses, 5 combat cards, and 1 agent. Of course, take this as a basic guideline and see what works for you. You might lean more towards additional agents, a lot of witnesses and events that increase aid in skill checks, or some that remove the threat of combat. First of all, gather a team of unique agents whose total resource values add up to 20. It doesn't matter how many you have, but you should try to at least have 3. Then have your deck ready, made up of 60 cards with no more than 2 of any card. Pick your X-File and keep it face down, and then arrange your play area as such. To the left is your bureau, with your bureau deck, your field in the middle, and the hospital on the right, with your X-file directly in front of you. Add 5 tokens to each of your resource and conspiracy pools to the left and right before you, with damage counters at the hospital. Finally, shuffle your deck, draw 7 cards, and decide who starts the game. There's a lot that goes into a turn, with a number of phases to get through one after another. They are the briefing, healing, requisition, deployment, case assignment, investigation, and debriefing phases. Let's run them down. First, the active player draws a card. Then they take as many resource tokens equal to the combined res values of their agents. You can then spend any number of these points on drawing extra cards from the deck. You must announce how many cards you will draw, however, and pay for them at that time. You cannot spend and draw any more afterwards. Next, the opponents each have the opportunity to discard as many cards to gain an equal amount of conspiracy, which can then be in turn spent to purchase additional cards from their deck. Again, the amount exchanged must be specific. For example, if I have agents Mulder, Scully, Kursov, and Lamana, I would get 6 resource tokens, 1 for each point among my agents. Due to Mulder's special ability, any resource tokens he generates must be spent drawing cards, so only 4 can be spent on other cards or actions. My opponent then discards any number of cards from his hand, gains an amount of conspiracy equal to the total cost of cards discarded. During this time, any agent that was injured and kept in the hospital last turn can now heal some damage. If an agent's printed health rating is 3 or less, they heal 1 point. If their printed health is 4 or more, they can heal 2 points. Only agents with a current health rating of 3 or higher may be permitted to leave, regardless of whether or not their visit to the hospital was voluntary. Remember, agents in the hospital may not contribute to any skill checks. For example, I have Mulder with 5 damage and Kursov with 3 damage at the hospital, since their health ratings have been reduced to 0. Since Mulder's printed health value is 5, he heals 2 points, leaving him at 3 damage still, while Kursov only heals 1 since her printed health is 3. Neither can leave as they have less than 3 current health each. Agents have access to a wide variety of equipment, weaponry, and other gear, which can be obtained at the Bureau. They must be at the Bureau, and resource points must be spent from your pool to play cards from your hand, as long as their activator is Bureau. For example, I have an agent at the Bureau and I have the card Knife in my hand. Since the agent is in the Bureau and the knife has the Bureau activator, I can play it by spending 2 resource tokens and moving the card from my hand to an agent, in this case, Agent Mulder. At this point in the turn, you may now send agents to different locations in your play area. These locations are the Bureau, Hospital, and the Field. Agents must be in the Bureau to requisition equipment for next turn. Agents must be in the field to participate in site investigations. Remember that an agent may not be moved out of the hospital if he has less than 3 health. During this phase, you may also build teams of 1 or more agents. Numerous teams may be deployed to the same location, so you could attempt a number of site investigations on the same turn. For example, I have agents Mulder, Scully, Kursov, and Lamana. Lamana sustained 2 damage during a previous investigation, so he was in the hospital. I then form a team with agents Mulder, Scully, and Kursov and assign them to the field. At the start of the phase, the investigating player places any site cards in the field that he might investigate after paying their resource cost. Keep in mind though that just because the site is in the field, it doesn't mean it will get investigated. Any uninvestigated sites in the field remain there until the end of the turn. After site cards have been played, the opponent has the opportunity now to play bluff cards face down, including adversary cards. A side card that has any bluff cards attached will remain in the field until investigated or the game ends, as do any attached bluff cards. Sites have a prerequisite for investigation and success, a skill to check and a total level required. If the combined total of all agents in a team can meet or beat that level, the site is successfully investigated. Some sites have multiple prerequisites. In this instance, you may select the skill to challenge. Keep in mind that, similarly to witness cards, side cards are considered unique and so cannot have multiple copies of the same site in the field. Cards with the keyword bluff can hinder an investigation. They can be played face down during the case assignment phase by anyone other than the investigating player. Face down bluff cards are turned up when its site is investigated, and the player who played it must pay its conspiracy cost, but for one less, to a minimum of 1. If the cost cannot be paid, the bluff is discarded with no effect. Alternatively, keyword bluff cards may be played as normal conspiracy cards at full cost. You may instead wish to play any other card face down as a bluff to make the investigating player think twice about trying to solve it. If it is an adversary, it will remain until defeated. Otherwise, if it is any other non-bluff card, it will be discarded. Now it's time to investigate those sites. If the agents succeed, they may ask one question. It's important to note that each site may be investigated by a single agent team during your turn. Once your teams are assigned to sites, you can now resolve them one at a time in the following process, called a skill check subroutine. First, the investigating player announces which skill is being used, then reveal any attached bluff cards. The opponent may now pay for and resolve any or all. Whichever aren't resolved are discarded, as well as any cards that would have no effect, such as a side card or any other card that requires resource points. Starting with the investigating player, players may now pay for and play cards from their hand to affect the result of the skill check. The investigating player may play events, witnesses, and other cards using resource points, and the opponent may play events, adversaries, and other cards using conspiracy points. When both players have finished playing cards, they are now resolved, starting from the last card played. Each card is discarded when its effect is applied and resolved. If the next card is an adversary card, however, this begins a combat round, but we'll get to that soon. Any other cards played may begin a new skill check subroutine, which must be resolved before the original subroutine can. When all cards have been resolved, the skill check subroutine is complete. See if the agent's team's skill level can meet the prerequisite, and the investigating player may ask an X-file question. If the prerequisite is not met, the side card is discarded. Some examples of an X-file question are, is your X-Files affiliation alien? Or, is your X-Files method violence? The question can only be specifically about one of these classifications according to the site. For example, agents Mulder, Scully, and Kosef are selected into a team and are assigned to investigate the site Aubrey, Missouri, which has 2 bluff cards attached to it. The 2 bluff cards are revealed now, the first being Car Troubles, which costs 3 conspiracy and removes an agent from a team of 3 or more, targeting Scully, who is now removed from the team. The second being the adversary Good People, Good Food, which is not negated and so results in a combat round before resolving the site's skill check. During a skill check subroutine, you may encounter an adversary that you couldn't negate. If this occurs, you will move to combat to deal with your foe. If there are multiple adversaries, they are resolved separately. There are 2 main paths to a combat round, starting with long-range combat and then moving to close-range combat. Both combat scenarios act as separate combat skill check subroutines. Any equipment held by the agents that affect their long-range or close-range combat skills come into effect during these checks. Starting with long-range combat, combine the LRC skills of all agents present and assign the total as damage to the adversary, who also assigns their LRC value to a single agent of the opponent's choice. Combat cards may be played by both players to affect the outcome in some way. Once LRC has been resolved, move on to close-range combat. Just as with LRC, add the totals of all agents' CRC skills and assign them as damage to the adversary, who simultaneously assigns their skill level as damage to a single agent. Again, combat cards may be played to affect the result. Any agent that has more than 0 health may stay in the field if they wish, but should they choose to go to the hospital, they must remain there until they are at least 3 health. Also, any witnesses that have health, such as the witness card Charlie Scanny, are temporarily treated as agents, but are discarded should their health be depleted to 0. After long-range and close-range combat, any damage sustained by an agent is marked with a number of tokens equal to the amount of damage taken. Should an agent be reduced to 0 or less health, they are moved immediately to the hospital section at 0 health with the number of tokens added to them equal to their health rating. If by the end of the close-range combat round, the adversary and at least 1 agent are still alive, close-range combat begins again until a victor is determined. For example, beginning with the long-range combat against the adversary Good People, Good Food, Agent Mulder has an LRC of 2 and Agent Kosef has LRC 1, while the adversary has no LRC skill. No combat cards are played, so the adversary takes 3 damage and the agents take 0. Combat now proceeds to close range. The adversary has CRC 3, while Mulder has CRC 2 and Kosef has 1. Mulder has a knife card, which adds CRC plus 1. The agents deal 4 damage for a grand total of 7. The adversary assigns 3 damage to Kosef, resulting in her having 0 health. The agent's player uses a first aid combat card, which immediately heals 1 point of damage at a cost of 0. Agent Kosef recovers 1 health, preventing her from going to the hospital. The adversary has 3 health left, and Kosef has 1 health remaining. Close range combat begins again. The agents do another 4 damage, and the adversary does another 3 damage to Kosef. The adversary card is moved to the discard pile, and Kosef immediately moves to the hospital with 3 tokens. The last step in a player's turn, players must discard cards from their hand until they have 7 cards left. Afterwards, the turn is over, and play continues with the next player. Well, that's it, I guess. Thanks for coming along with us through the strange and wild of the unknown, and I hope you've picked up a few things on the way. I'm pretty sure I got everything, but if I missed anything or if you have any questions, let me know. Like and subscribe as you like, of course, and I hope to see you on the next video. And remember, the truth is out there.